Hello and welcome to another episode of my sound design tutorial series. Nowhere the Boy here. This month we're going to be tackling drum programming and sidechain compression. So I'm going to show you how to quickly sketch out a beat, turn that simple drum pattern into a bigger section, and then take that section and apply sidechain compression to get your drums to really push through your mix and be nice, clear, and present. So let's get started. For the sake of this tutorial, I picked 160 BPM. We're going to be making a hip hop rhythm, but this could work at any tempo. So let's start by recording in a 4-bar loop. And I've thrown some drums into a drum rack, a kick, a clap, and a hi-hat. So let's get started with that. Just make sure your track's armed. I'm going to turn the metronome on and let's hit record. All right, so this is a very simple drum beat, about as simple as they come. So I'm going to go ahead and select all and just quantize. Now, does this mean you should quantize your drums? No. And there's going to be parts in this tutorial where we do unquantized rhythms to kind of get a natural swing. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to quantize it here. So we got this beat, and if you listen to it again, very, very simple, but still effective. So let's go ahead and duplicate that 4 bars, and now we'll have 8 bars. And let's look what we can change in this second set here. So I always like to think of the different sections as call and response. So these first 4 bars do something, and what do these second 4 bars do in response? So I'm gonna go in and maybe add an extra kick on right here. Another kick on the and, a clap on the and here, clap on the and then another kick on the downbeat here. So now if we listen, we'll have some nice variation. So there we go. We already have 8 bars. So let's go ahead and take those 8 bars and duplicate them out again. And the reason why I'm really emphasizing just duplicating what you've done out again is because I feel like a lot of people get trapped in a little 4-bar or 8-bar loop that sounds really cool, but then you find yourself trapped and not able to make an entire song. So by this way, we're always forcing ourselves to move forward. So now let's take a look at the second 8-bar section. So I'm just going to press Command L, and so this just loops up this section. You can also click it up here, and then whatever is highlighted will repeat. So that's just super useful for kind of getting in the zone and just working in a specific area. So all right, so now that we've duplicated the 8 bars to turn into 16, let's work on adding to that call and response effect, and let's add some tension too. So with adding tension, you can do it a lot of different ways, but one way is in how we balance out a particular bar. And I like to do that sometimes by withholding certain parts. So in this case, let's take the kick out of these first 2 measures, and we're going to have strictly claps. And now if you listen to it, you'll have and to kind of rebalance out this section, let's take a look at the last 4 bars here. And I'm going to zoom in here, and let's add in a couple more kicks. So it's like I took kicks out of this first part, and now I'm like putting those kicks into the second part. And so that way you're building this tension in that everyone's expecting the kick to come back in, and you just have the clap going, doing its thing. And then when the kick comes back in, it comes in twice as energetic. And that's just like the kick responding to being gone for those 4 measures. So now let's take a listen to what we have. So then when we look at our entire 16 bars, it's all slightly different and evolving. And, each 4 bars is responding to the previous 4 bars and kind of building off that and evolving. And so that's how, we're building this interest. It's not just the same loop over and over and over again, but it started from the same loop. So now I'm going to just consolidate all these. So we have 16 bars, and now let's go ahead and just duplicate that again. So now we have 32 bars. So we're really building out the beat here. So now, continuing this trend of call and response, in the second 16 bars, I'm going to look at what we can add. Well, we still have the hi-hat that we haven't used. I have it down here on another track. So let's go ahead and just record it in over these 16 bars. And there we go. And as you can see, it's not completely on the grid. I'm probably going to expand that one. And, could we do the same thing like we did earlier and select all and quantize? Yeah, we could do that. But I think it's kind of cool to have elements that are super rigid and then others that are very loose, because it gives you kind of this naturalistic feel. If you were listening to, like an acoustic group, like a rock band or something, they're going to be slowly speeding up and slowly, and slowing down over time. You're getting that push and pull. And I think that's very crucial in electronic music because, too often we just make all the music on a grid and it sounds a bit robotic. So this way, we're giving a little more soul into the beat. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that. And let's listen to what we have so far. So there you go. You can kind of hear that push and pull with time and how like the hi-hat sometimes is behind the beat and then it catches up. So we can really accentuate this feeling even more. And oftentimes I'll go back into drums, that I have all quantized, and I'll kind of nudge them out of time and for building tension. And I like doing this a lot with like claps and snares. You can hear it on a lot of my older music. I do this all the time. So what I'll do is I'll pick these 4 bars. And we're going to have the clap slowly go out of time and then slowly come back into time. So what I'll do is I'll just nudge it slowly more and more. And it's kind of, I'm eyeballing it. And I think that's really fun. Sometimes it's cool to, to get off the grid. And so then for these, these next 4 bars, it's going to snap back into place. And then for these 4 bars, let's have it slowly go out of time again. But then maybe have it start a little before the beat there. So now, if you're listening, all right, so taking a look at our 32 bars, we got some interesting stuff going on. This first 16 bars, everything's a little more gridded, and then things kind of, go a little more out of time in these 16 bars. So, we're getting some changes and some evolution, which I think is very important, not only in melodies, but in rhythms. So now let's kind of go back in and start adding in some fills. So, we played this rhythm out. It's a cool hip hop rhythm. But for like fills and little freak out moments, I like to draw upon all sorts of genres. Being that we're at 160 BPM, I think using some triplets in a footwork kind of pattern would be really cool in some different sections. So maybe let's pick these 4 bars right here that I have highlighted. And let's go in here. And so let's take out the kicks, and let's start kind of putting in triplets. Now, you can turn on the triplet grid if you want. I don't use the triplet grid. I just learned without it, and so I can kind of see, what's going on. But whatever works for you, it can be fun to drag in, to add some other rhythms from other genres into the music, because I really want to get that footwork kind of rhythm, that duh, 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 duh. So now if you hear it, and that sounds pretty cool. So let's add that into the second half of the section right here. And instead of having the triplets start over on the downbeat, let's continue the triplets going out here through the beat. And it's kind of through, switching up these tiny little rhythmic components. You can get very big changes in your sound. So, now if we listen to it, let's change that one back there. All right, let's give it a listen. So we're doing a combination of the triplets restarting on the first beat and then others carrying out over, multiple bars. And it's just that added variation, that added call and response. I know it sounds like a bit of a broken record, but that's because it's very important. So now we have 32 bars. They're sounding, pretty cool, pretty interesting. So now I'm going to show you a bit about sidechain compression and what I use to get the drums to really stand out. Okay, so now that I showed you a bit about drum programming, let's tackle sidechain compression. Now, I approach this from a very simple angle. I just use compressor and I throw it on whatever I want to sidechain. So in this case, I recorded in a bass, very simple. So let's take a listen to how it sounds without anything, just the drums and the bass. You hear how the drums and the bass are both competing for space in the mix. Right now it's lacking definition and clarity, and sidechain compression is great for getting those drums to really push through. So now we're going to go ahead and throw the compressor on the bass group, and you're going to click this drop down arrow, and then we're going to click sidechain. Now you're going to go to audio from, and this is what is going to be doing the side chaining, what the bass is going to be sidechained to. So we're going to click here and click main drums, and main drums, as you can see, is the group that has the kick, clap, and the hi-hats that we had just recorded in. So now if we were to play it, you still wouldn't notice anything, and that's because we haven't messed with the threshold or the ratio of the attack and the release. So let's start with the threshold. Now as you drag this down, the more you drag it down, the more intense your sidechaining effect is going to be. So now, if we take a listen, you can hear the drums pumping through just a little more. And we can exaggerate that effect by dragging the threshold down all the way. And this is what you would get. That's sounding pretty cool right now, but we can go even further in and really affect the rate of the sidechaining. So the next thing we'll take a look at is the ratio, and the ratio is just how much the sidechaining is affecting the bass. So as we increase the ratio, like if we go to all the way to infinite, whenever the drums hit, the bass will be completely silent, completely ducked out. So let's take a listen to that. And that's starting to pump really intensely. And depending on what you want, you might want the sidechain to be more evident, or you might want it to be subtler. So if we want to go for a subtler sidechain, you might want to ease up on the threshold here. And let's mess with this attack and release. So the attack is how quickly the sidechain ducks the sound, and the release is how quickly or slowly the sound goes back to its normal volume. So we can kind of adjust the attack let's turn the attack down a little bit, and let's turn the release time up and take a listen to how that sounds. And let's play around with it. And it's really through playing with these 4 parameters that you can find exactly what you want. Not all sidechain settings are going to work for every particular sound. So if you want to see what I usually use for my sidechaining, let's turn this off and just throw it back on. What I usually do is turn the threshold down pretty low, and I turn the release time down pretty low. And maybe turning the ratio up, but keeping it at 2 is pretty good. And now if you listen, we have to enable the sidechain, click the audio from. So now if you listen, the drums are coming through nicely, but that bass is still sitting there very present. So you get a nice mix of both worlds, the best of both worlds. And now you could be asking me, well, why didn't you throw the compressor just on the track that we wanted to sidechain? And the reason why I threw it on a group is because if you decided to freeze and flatten, this bass, the MIDI, to work in audio, if there's a compressor on it, it will not let you freeze and flatten it. So for example, say I threw this compressor on the track and I'm like, oh, I want to freeze it. It'll say the track cannot be frozen because of the routing compressor. And so you can get around that by throwing the compressor on the group. So now, if you chose to freeze and flatten it, you could. So there you have it. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. This is Nowhere the Boy. Have a great rest of your day or night, whatever time it is that you're watching this, and happy music making.